Our creative life energy. What is provided here is a general overview of energy and the basic aspects of our creative life energy relative to accessing our creative power and creative ability. If we observe physical creation, it is clear nothing occurs unless there's a movement of energy. Energy is essential to physical creation. The physics definition of energy has two parts. One part is the ability to do work, where work has a defined mathematical definition of a force acting through a distance, a force just being a push or a pull. But the other half of the definition is actually more understandable. It is the ability to make something happen or to cause an effect. When we say something has a lot of energy, we normally do not think of a pushing or a pulling. Rather, we look to the effect that the stored energy can cause. If I have a stick of dynamite in my hand, we know it has a lot of stored energy. We tend to think of the size of the explosion the dynamite can cause rather than how big of a push or pull it will cause. Of course, it is understood the explosion will cause a push on anything around it. Now, there's a very curious aspect of energy that is rarely discussed. We are only aware of energy when it is in motion. That is, we experience it in some way. We can store energy and even calculate how much energy is stored in something, but the energy itself is only known when it is experienced and it flows in some way. This movement or flow of energy occurs between some arrangement of elements which stores or can generate a high level of energy relative to a place where the arrangement of the elements is of a low energy. As the energy flows, things happen or can be made to happen. Here we can introduce the concept of grounding, which is simple to say the ground refers to a place of lower potential energy or to where the energy is dissipated. The analogy of a battery is always nice to use because the flow of energy is very clear. There is stored energy in the battery, and when the terminals are connected, there is a flow of energy from the higher concentration of energy to the lower concentration, which we call ground, and the elements originally storing the energy are rearranged. As the energy flows between the two connected terminals, we can cause some type of effect or something to happen. When the energy flows, it takes the path of least resistance. If we block the flow of energy in any way, it looks for a way to flow around, and that other will be the path of least resistance. I use the term arrangement of elements in this discussion because I do not wish your attention and awareness to focus on a particular arrangement of elements. For example, I could say the elements are the atoms and talk about arrangement of atoms, or I could talk about a ball rolling down a hill and talk about the size of the hills, or I can talk about the energy and anger within someone seeking vengeance on another. In each of these cases, there is stored energy that can flow to a place called ground and cause an effect. It needs to be noted here that the flow of energy can be generated in an infinite number of ways with an infinite number of arrangements of elements, where there are an infinite number of elements that can be used and be arranged. Energy is energy. The issue of working with energy is understanding the arrangement of the elements that will generate the flow of energy. If you look at all the human endeavors with energy, there are a variety of areas: nuclear energy, gravitational energy, atomic energy, mechanical energy, electrical energy, vibrational energy, electromagnetic energy, and a variety of other similarly labeled forms of energy. However, in the end, energy is energy, and one can convert one to the other if one understands how the elements work that is storing the energy. Here, in this discussion, our focus and interest is on our creative life energy and the elements that impact the flow of our creative life energy. Our creative life energy is like any other energy. There is an arrangement of elements that gave rise to the flow of our creative life energy reflected in our life. Then there's the arrangement of elements within our being that can direct this creative life energy reflected in our creative power and creative ability and what we create. Our creative life energy is what energizes all experience we have. Our creative life energy that sustains us is a continuous flow of energy and is flowing to dissipate in the experience of life, which is reflected in our life path. We cannot stop it. We can divert it or block its expression, but we cannot stop it. It will find a path of least resistance to continue on its path to dissipation. We will create something whether we like it or not. On this point, that creative life energy is in flow means that there is some arrangement of elements that gave rise to this flow. As such, our life is connected in some way to these elements that gave rise to the flow of our creative life energy. Exactly what these elements are that gave rise to the flow of our creative life energy can only be speculated, for this flow of energy existed before our human mind developed in the body it inhabits. What this means for us and for our life means there is more happening than of which we are aware. In essence, we are only playing a role in a larger orchestration that gave rise to the flow of our creative life energy. This flow of creative life energy will always seek expression in an experience. If we attempt to block the flow, it will go back up and burst forth in an unexpected way, an unexpected physical experience outside what we would call our normal boundaries and normal experiences of life. Or it will simply spill over the obstacle and return to a normal flow path within the habits of our past. Remember, energy takes the path of least resistance. If we block the flow in any way, it will look for another way to flow, and that other way of flowing will be the path of least resistance. The issue here is we possess a creative life energy. It's about creativity, life, and energy. Accessing our creative power and creative ability is about learning how to consciously work with this flow of our creative life energy that is animating our being. What needs to be noted, based on the brief discussion above about energy, working with energy involves understanding the arrangement of the elements that give rise to the stored energy. The question is, what are the analogous terminals, as in a battery, that when connected allow this energy to flow, and what and where is the ground point to which this energy flows, and what occurs within the environment as it flows, relative to what we call our creative life energy. Here the question is, what are the elements that affect the creative life energy, determining how it flows in the life we are living? The elements that control and direct this energy flowing within us is our beliefs and how and what we think and believe. It is our creative life energy flows into where we direct the focus of our attention and awareness. We learn how to control it by learning how to align with the flow and change the flow in response to what we desire to create and the intentions we hold. It may be obvious in that physical creation is about physical experience, and our creations will be physical experiences or have a physical element to them. Even if we have a profound mystical experience, we're having it in our physical body. Our creative life energy will flow into a physical experience of some type. That is inevitable. For all practical purposes, the human being is a creativity machine that will transform a variety of stored energy forms, and a variety of energy flows into physical experiences. But there is an ability to create non-physical experiences. Also, in the same way humans' action affects the physical world, we can assume human action affects the non-physical world. It needs to be remembered the human being can be seen as a four-stringed instrument where there's a mental string, an emotional string, a physical string, and a spiritual string. Each of these strings need to be learned to be properly played if we wish to create an analogously harmonious music on our instrument, namely the body, and our physical experience. When looking at the direction of flow of our creative life energy, it is flowing as a composite of all the intentions we hold on any level of our being, spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical. Strongly held intentions obviously have a much greater influence over the flow of our creative life energy. Knowing the inevitability that we'll create physical experiences, this gives rise to two things. One is, because we are human, a certain portion of our creative life energy flows into the routine of life and what it means to be a human. Such things as eating, sleeping, and the like will consume a significant portion of our energy. A certain portion of our energy is used to just be human. The remainder of our energy is spread out into all directions on mundane affairs of our life. The greater the distraction, and the more time we give the distraction, the more of our creative life energy goes into it. If we continue to allow ourselves to be distracted, we never create what we wish, nor do we take control of our life, for our energy is scattered and beyond our control. Also, if we are too distracted, we will never accomplish what we incarnated to do. Hence, the need to create a single point focus for our life, to create a living meditation, and to tie to what we desire to create. The second thing is that whether we realize it or not, any experience we have is tied to both our internal state and the environment in which we find ourselves. Some environments make certain types and kinds of experiences more readily obtainable. Similarly, our inner state determines how open we are to whatever experience we have. Most of us have been trained to believe we need to go to certain locations to have certain types and kinds of experiences. There is a partial truth in that. However, the feeling that we can experience in any location can be experienced in any location if we create the correct internal conditions, for our internal world does get reflected in the outer world we experience. Life is about feeling, and feeling is about accessing the flow of energy within us and flowing through us.
Now, there are experiences where the feelings allow us to know life is worth living, and these experiences are determined by the choices we make in life and how and what we think and believe. The bottom line here is we will have a physical experience. The question is, what type and kind of physical experience will we have, and is it one that serves us? This then raises the question, how do we have to be, what do we have to do to create that world we wish to experience such that we feel life is worth living? For in the end, it's all about how we are directing our creative life energy.